Hey friends, happy Thursday. Welcome into this members only Q&A. Appreciate you guys being here. Looking forward to these questions today. I think we should have a fun one. Obviously, trade deadline just happened. Bye week this week, so no big matchup, but certainly some big games in the NFL. And of course, we get ready for Packers Bears in just a little bit over a week. So again, can't thank you enough for all of your support. It is super amazing, and I especially really appreciate the huge spike in numbers that we've seen over the course of the last few weeks. So thank you so much for that. We'll get started right away though and get to as many questions that we can. Should have about 45 to an hour here. So like I said, let's get to it. All right, Love and Football. What do you make of the O-line rotation this week due to Myers' injury? Did it influence where you think anyone should see more snaps? No, I think they have the right, sort of feel for where it is right now. I thought Walker had a great week. He, to me, is still the left tackle. Zach Thomas clearly the right tackle. I think we sort of saw that Myers is still needed to be that guy in the in the center of the line and making the calls and the checks and just the snaps in and of themselves. I think that's a key part that we saw this past week. So he's still the center. Elton's been great at left guard. And then I think you're still at the point where Jordan Morgan and Sean Ryan should be rotating and competing for that right guard spot. So this didn't change up anything for me. I also don't think it totally changed my mind on next year of saying, hey, we still don't want to pay Josh Myers 12 to 13 mil per season, whatever that ends up being. And I still think they have options on this line to go with. And I think they can continue to get better. I think the Elton snapping thing was mostly a one-off. I don't think it's going to be something that will be a long-term issue. He's done it before in his career. He started at center in college, probably just needs a few more reps at it. And I think he'll be totally fine. And of course they could do Sean Ryan there. They could do Jacob Monk. They could do Zach Tom, although I don't think we want to see that. They have options. So I'm still pretty set that I think it's probably best not to resign Myers, but we'll see what they end up doing there. I think for now, still Myers at center, Walker and Tom at tackle, Elton at left guard, and then the two guys competing at right guard, I still think makes the most sense at this point in time. I'll also add on top of that, if Josh Myers is out another week, I'd probably do the exact same thing with the line, same lineup that we saw against Detroit. I don't think it'll be, if it's raining, maybe give Elton a few more of those reps at center just to make sure. But, outside of that, I think he'll be fine at that center spot. I don't really see any major issue there. Keontae, Andy, do you think after resting up for a couple of weeks that Jordan starts to find himself and get in a rhythm again? Also, how do you feel with all the damn Twitter doomsday comments? I can't take it. I don't know which direction that you're going on from a Twitter doomsday comments. And also just in general, there's always usually a lot of Twitter doomsday comments. I'll assume that you're meaning it from a Packers standpoint. You just have to kind of let that stuff go. Fans are short for fanatic, and they're going to freak out every time there's a loss or somebody plays bad. It's going to be fire and cut and fire and brimstone every time. So try to take it with a grain of salt. One of the things that I try to stress as much as possible is try to stay even keel. It's never that great. It's never that bad. There's going to be ups and downs through the course of the season. Try to enjoy the roller coaster ride. Know that it's not always going to be perfect. And also understand that even when bad things happen, sometimes those are a necessary evil to getting better. And when you have to go through those hardships and that adversity, it sometimes calluses you and makes you stronger in the long run. So yeah, it sucks that you have to experience it in the time. It wouldn't be a ton of fun. I don't know, maybe it would, but I think in general, if Green Bay, me being 30 years into this, had just won the Super Bowl for 30 consecutive years and never lost a game, I don't know, it's probably not that interesting anymore. So enjoy the storytelling that the league gives us. Enjoy that sometimes where you have the hardships and the downtimes, because it's going to make it all the much more worth it when you get to experience the uptimes and the good things that happen. So it's not to excuse all the bad things that happen. It's not to say you can't be frustrated when dumb penalties and drops and interceptions show them rear their ugly heads, but just know it's not going to end up being that bad. This is a very talented team. They've got a great quarterback. And to answer the first part of your question, yes, I do think Jordan will very much start to find his rhythm as long as he can get fully healthy and this doesn't linger through the course of the season. Even if somehow it does, and this is a down year for Jordan, I fully expect him to come back healthy next year. And I'm not saying this is going to be the case. I'm saying in a worst case scenario, even if that were to happen, I think you very clearly still feel extremely confident about him coming back healthy next year, finding his rhythm. You look at quarterback play throughout the league, even the best of the best have a little bit of a dip sometimes, especially after that first successful season. Then they usually get used to it. They bring it back up and then they overcome and are better after that. So nothing that I'm concerned about at all with Jordan Love at this point. Also, do you think the Preston Smith trade says more about their willingness to give LVN more snaps or their curiosity about the other guys, Enigbari, Mosby, or Cox? I think it's a little bit of all of it. I think the fact that Preston requested a trade played a part into it. I think the fact that they could save some money played a factor into it. I think the fact that Preston wasn't playing well factored into it. I think the fact that he did not fit in the 4-3 factored into it. I think wanting to get LVN and Egbare, Mosby, and Cox more playing time factored into it. I think it was all of the above. I think it was absolutely all of the above. I think Green Bay is probably in a better situation. I think they can get some of these younger guys more snaps and hopefully get some of these younger guys better by the end of the year when you really need them. Give them those reps. I think it gives Preston the opportunity to go to a 3-4. I think he's going to be happy with it. And Steelers get a very nice 3-4 outside linebacker. I think they'll be happy with it. I think this is the best thing that you can have happen in a trade, is that hopefully it works out for Green Bay, Preston, and the Steelers. And on paper, I think it should, and hopefully it will. Richard, how do you see the future of the edge room? The Packers have spent high draft capital and salary into Gary and LVN. I don't think another first-round pick will solve all the pass rushing problems. I mean, I guess my question would be is what would solve all the pass rushing problems, right? Like at some point, you're going to have to continue to put resources into it if they're not performing effectively. The unfortunate truth right now is that you're not getting the ROI that you would like from Rashawn Gary on that big contract. You're not getting the ROI out of LVN as a 13th overall pick. I think the ROI on Egbare is mostly fine so far. If he's your fourth edge rusher, now he's third, but if he's your fourth and rotational guy as a, fifth round pick, I think, like that's good ROI on Egbare. I'm not super concerned there. If you're not getting the ROI in the new contract to Kenny Clark, not getting it in the first round pick to Devontae Wyatt, I think Slayton, you could argue, he hasn't taken the jump that you wanted at any point, but I think you could still argue you've mostly got it out of the, I think again, fifth round pick that they spent on him. And, Carl Brooks, it's another interesting one. I would like to see a little bit more out of him, but I think you're still mostly happy with him as a rotational piece. Colby Wooden, probably not as a fourth round pick, but overall, on the whole, you're not getting what you expected there. So if you do get into this situation where this is how it just plays out, you're going to have to take a look at it aggressively in 2025. And you're going to have to bring in new blood, and you're going to have to hope that they make an impact. Now, whether that's a first round pick or day 2 selections or defensive tackle or end, or you make another big free agent signing, I don't know. But it'll be very clear that if this defensive end group and defensive tackle group is inconsistent in getting to the quarterback for the remainder of this year, that they're going to have to do something and upgrade it in some capacity, because you cannot continue to live like this where you're not getting home with your front four. It'd be one thing if they were like unbelievable at run defense, but it's not exactly that they're doing that either. One more, could you quickly run through your thoughts on the wide receiver pecking order now versus maybe where you were going into the season? Has anything shifted in your opinion enough to keep eyes on later? I think for me right now, Jaden Reed is your one. And again, when I say one, it doesn't mean a lot. They're all going to play. They're all going to get opportunities, but Jaden Reed's been the best. I think Romeo Doubs has been the second best. I would say then Christian Watson, and then it gets iffy. I don't think Wicks, Melton, or Heath have really been maybe what you've expected going into this year. I think you can make an argument that's the case for Christian Watson as well. He hasn't quite taken off, but I'm more willing to say, hey, maybe we need to take a little bit of a breather on Wicks till he gets a little bit more confidence and put Melton in a little bit more. I still think Wicks is right there, and he should be really good. He just hasn't been. So if you want to keep him in that spot, it's fine. And then Melton and then Heath. But if we want to start switching Melton and Wicks a little bit, just till Wicks gets a little bit back into form and starts playing more consistent football, I would understand it. But for me, Reed, Dobbs, Watson, Wicks, Melton, and Heath is probably the right order at this point. Ben, I love this question. Christmas music listener, if so, when is it and why is it acceptable after Halloween? It is not acceptable after Halloween. That's the very first clear and obvious answer to that. I am a very firm, there's no wiggle room on this whatsoever. And I think I'm giving it a pretty significant period of time here. Day after Thanksgiving until New Year's Day, through New Year's Day. That I'm okay with any Christmas stuff. Anything you want. Christmas lights, Christmas tree, decorations, music, anything that you want. Day after Thanksgiving through New Year's Day. Like that is, we're talking about a few days at the end of November, all of December, and that first day of January. We're giving it more than a month. And a couple of things here. This is very important. Number one, too much of anything is overkill, and it starts not having the same desired effect as if you keep it special. If Christmas was all year round, nobody would care about Christmas anymore because it just happens all the time. If it ends up being a 2-month thing, a sixth of the year, it's not special anymore. It completely loses its luster. So I think sometimes the shrinking down of it makes what you do get during that time. And again, we're still talking over a 12th of the entire year that will be considered quote unquote Christmas season, over a 12th of the year. That is a significant percentage of time. So when's Thanksgiving this year? So we have, where's my calendar? There it is. So Thanksgiving is what, on the 28th? Yeah, 28th. So 29th, 30th, 2 days in November, 31 in December, and then the first day. So we're giving it 34 days. All right. So let's bring this up. We're going to bring out our handy dandy calculator. 34 days out of 365 that's 9% of the year. We're giving 9% of the year to Christmas. That is a significant period of time. Let Halloween have its thing. Then let Thanksgiving breathe a little bit. Let have, fall in November and harvest and all that crap, even though Thanksgiving food sucks. We can say that clearly. Let it have its time. Then day after Thanksgiving, start doing your Christmas thing. Awesome. No problem. And Black Friday, whatever you want to do. And then, for me, how I always did it was like, you would always have off of school for Christmas break up until New Year's Day. And then New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, you celebrate New Year's Day. A lot of people like keeping their decorations up to celebrate through that time. Fine with it. January 2nd, see you later. It's done. It's over here. Get all your stuff done. So that's my hot take on the Christmas time of year. Christmas music is great. I love it, but I don't want to hear an ounce of it until the day after Thanksgiving, and it has to be done New Year's Day, end of New Year's Day. That's it. That's the window. That's the college football negotiating period. That's when it is. It's unnegotiable after that. That's my take on that one. Good question though. What trade compensation would you have to receive to trade Wicks? I'm not giving up on him. I mean, if somebody was offering like 2 first-round picks, there's always a price, right? If somebody was willing to give a first-round pick, I'd have to consider it, but I'm not giving up on that guy yet. I think he's super talented, and he's taken this Devontae Adams career arc a bit too seriously, including the second-year fall-off where everyone wants him gone and everything. He's too talented to me. I want to get him playing at the level I think he can play at, because I think he can be a number 1 in this league. And he has the ability to be special, but man, he's got to put it together. He's got to find a way to put it together. So I'm not giving up on him at this point, and no team is going to offer me what I would want. I'll put it that way. Helson, howdy to you as well. Thanks for being here. Orton, Goodfellow, great name. Still think we move on from Myers after this year. Yeah, we touched base on that. I think they do. Wouldn't shock me if they kept him though. Would not shock me, but I think given the choices, I think it's more likely that he's playing for another team next year. 8-0, all I can accept now for the second half after getting blasted by the Lions at Lambeau. Time for Jordan to stop throwing picks. At least I bet on my team versus the Lions. Ashamed of you, Andy, taking the Lions. I was right. I was right. The Lions won that game. I will never understand, and I think you're probably mostly kidding here, Omer, but how lame would it be if I just every single game said Packers are going to win, Packers are going to win, Packers are going to win? That's not good analysis. That'd be a shitty channel, for lack of a better term. Like that doesn't do anyone any favors. So I'm always going to give you how I feel. I thought Detroit was going to win that game, and they did. So that's one I actually got right this year. But listen, Green Bay is going to be fine. They're not going to go 8-0 in the second half of the season, and set proper expectations. If you set yourself up where only 8-0 is acceptable, you're going to set yourself up for failure. They're not going to go 8-0 in the second half of the year. And you can gladly play this back to me on social media and rub it in my face if I'm wrong. They're just not going to. It's too hard of a schedule, nor do I need them to. In fact, I don't want them to, because I will guarantee you that they're not going to go, because even if they go 8-0, if they go 8-0, I guess they maybe win the North, maybe get the 1 seed. Let's even say that they do. Let's even say they go 8-0 and get the 1 seed somehow, which with 3 losses, yeah, you're probably there, right? Even then, they would have to go 3-0 the remainder of the way to win the Super Bowl, right? Divisional round, conference championship, Super Bowl. They're not going 11-0 the second half of the season. They're just not. All right. They're going to have to lose a couple games here and there. So let it be during the regular season. Get a couple of those losses out of their system. Learn from them. Make sure you correct those mistakes so that when you get into the playoffs, you can make that 3 or 4 game run. And that's when I want to see it. I don't want to see any talk of undefeated until they get into the playoffs. And then if it's 3-0 or 4-0, depending on where that seeding stands, and it's probably going to have to be 4-0, that's when I want them to go undefeated. Up until then, I'm totally fine if they go 6-2 in the second half of this year, something like that, more than acceptable. I think that's a good Mendoza line to kind of keep an eye on through the second half of this year. Then a 4-0 postseason. Then that's when they can go undefeated. What's good, Andy? What can I do as a fan to help these guys catch the football? Should I write a letter? Should I be watching the game standing up in the garage? We got to catch the ball. You got to try a different form of underwear. I think that's first and foremost. Any underwear that you've been wearing during drops, it's got to go away. So start with that. Number two, you've got to figure out a bit better routine. So if you've been sitting on one chair, you got to change to a different chair. All right. I think those are probably the big two things. If you've been doing a specific pregame meal or drink, we got to change that up. So if you've been doing tuna salad on wheat, you got to go chicken salad on rye or whatever the Seinfeld reference is there. You just got to change it up. You got to do the opposite. And then they're going to start catching the ball. And the Packers, maybe they do have the opportunity then to go, 11-0 the rest of this year. So RJ, I think it's fair to say it's on you and the changes that you make. And if you don't make them correctly, there's nobody to blame. Not Matt LaFleur, not Jordan Love. It's kind of on you, my friend. So good luck the rest of the way. And we'll definitely be watching to make sure that you make the changes necessary, because if Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson have a big drop this week, we're going to have some words, RJ. We're going to have some words. I don't understand why skill position players are false starting. It's a lot easier to swallow when it's an offensive lineman. Just lack of discipline and lack of focus. Yeah, you had a Romeo Doubs one and a Josh Jacobs one this past week. Just can't happen. Just cannot happen. They got to clean that up and make sure that it's not an issue in the second half of the season. Nick, what can the coaching staff do to fix the penalties? I keep seeing people blame LaFleur, but he can't be on the field for them. No, but there does have to be a level of accountability. And at the end of the day, like, at some point, it does come back to the coach and what you're stressing and what you're allowing. And if people continue to make mistakes, then either you take them off the field or you set the tone in a different way. But you've got to get everyone on the same page, making sure that those mistakes don't get made. I think everyone on the team is more than capable of doing everything that the coaches are asking them of doing. I don't think it's, paralysis by analysis or asking them to do too much. So the players need to go out and play, yes, but Matt definitely needs to find a way to hold them accountable and just get them playing a bit more mistake-free football. Got to go. Always the best content anywhere with Andy on the Packers. Appreciate all you do, sir. 365, go Pack, go. Amir, thanks for being here. Hopefully you can catch my answer to your question on the rundown. Andy, or in the replay, I should say. Andy, to what do you attribute this irrational sense of panic coming from Packers fans? I have a hard time feeling pessimistic about the team with 6 wins through a lot of adversity. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think it's very common. I think Packers fans, for the most part, are spoiled. I think there was an expectation that this team would play closer to the level that they did at the end of last year. I think it's always a process. I don't think they've played their best football. If anything, I'm sort of encouraged by the fact that they're 6-3 and haven't played close to their best football. And my hope is that they play their best football at the end of the year, which is what we all want. It's really hard for a team to play their best football now and be 6, 7, 8, 9-0 or something like that, and still go on another run like that in the second half of the season. It's a long year. So I think they've been okay enough to get by at 6-3 right now, but I do think it's fair to say they need to play a lot better in order to make a run at this thing. And I think what you sort of start to try to do, right, is you don't need to see perfect football in the first half of the year. But what you need to see is the vision of everything at some point. I can see the vision for what the defense as a whole is trying to do and that they could end up being a really good defense come playoff time. I can see the vision for that. I think we've seen signs of that. I think we've seen a vision with Jordan Love. I think we've seen a vision with this offense. I think we've seen a vision with Josh Jacobs, with Xavier McKinney. I think there's a lot of things we have seen. What we haven't seen are a few things. One, the inability to play consistent football and not shoot yourself in the foot. Just constant stream of mistakes, right? That's been one thing that's going to give you some cause for concern. I don't think we've seen a good enough pass rush from the defensive front. We haven't even seen that in glimpses. Maybe Tennessee a little bit, but for the most part, we have not seen those guys, the front four, get home with 4. That's concerning. That has to be better, or it's a non-starter. You're not going to go on a 4-game win streak in the playoffs if you can't get home with 4 guys, at least to a decent extent. So that's a level of concerning, right? Jordan Love has not played a consistent brand of football so far this year. And while I think a lot of that is due to injuries and not being fully healthy, it still gives you a little bit of cause of like, hey, I need to see a little bit more there. I need to see him take better care of the football. Field goal kicking. Multiple kickers now. We still have not seen consistent field goal kicking on the air. So I think if you want to be somewhat pessimistic, you have to say, hey, I need to see a few of these things be better, or I know where the season ends. I've been down this path before. I think if you're looking at the positive, you're saying they're 6-3. They're mostly playing good football. They've lost against some good teams. And if they start playing their best football, imagine what they can be then, because they haven't come close to it yet. So I think there's ways you can lean on it, but do not understand the irrational sense at all. This team's going to be good. They're going to be fine. But I think the question is, can they be great? I don't think we've seen anything close to great yet. My hope is that we see it in the second half of the year when they need it the most. And I think they can. I really, really think they can. I'm just disappointed the AI was wrong. I know, me too. I haven't honestly been able to think about it. I'm depressed about it. That was the first one they got wrong. Still 8-1, pretty impressive. Hopefully that's the only one they get wrong, right? But that was a fun story. The story's dead. It does have a loss on the year. But we'll see how they do in the second half. The second half's the more important one anyway. And that's definitely the more important one. So hopefully the AI can get it all right in the second half of the year. What extensions do you think the Packers will prioritize this offseason? Tom, Walker, Dobbs, or Watson? Do you think they'll pick up Wyatt's fifth-year option? I think Wyatt's is very much completely dependent upon how he plays the remainder of this year. I think the main extension that you look at is Zach Tom. I think that's probably the one that you prioritize and get done. And I think everything else you try to, if possible, let play out through the remainder of next year before you make any final decisions on anything. So I think the answer is Zach Tom on that. Maybe Daniel Whalen. Daniel Whalen would potentially be the other one. I'm a little amused that with the moves they made, Chicago was under the impression that this would be their year, and yet same or more dysfunction than before. Man, a must win for them this week. If they lose to the Patriots, they then have Green Bay, Minnesota, and Detroit, and maybe Minnesota and Detroit are flipped there, but they have the 3 division opponents back to back to back. Their second half of the season schedule is brutal. Like, they have to get a win against New England, because if they don't, that team's going to shatter. I mean, it is on the brink right now. So this is a huge week for Chicago. If they get a win against New England and, maybe get feisty against the division, all right, well, let's see what they do. But they lose to New England, it might be it. It might be the end of Shane Waldron. It might be the end of everyone. It might be the head, the GM, the coach, and they might have to start over from scratch again. And then what's going to happen? They're going to get a new GM and a new coach, and they're going to go and sign a bunch of free agents and have an early draft pick. And Bears fans will talk smack and be like, now you guys are in trouble again. Look at the team we put together. And it'll be the same old Bears, because it's always the same old Bears. It's a good thing to see. You love to see it. You love to see it. RJ, what's good, Andy? Thoughts on Ajax starting over Gary Trent Jr.? My 2 cents. Competition is good. Has done wonders for the baby Packers after the 12th trade. Yeah, I'm totally cool with it. Yeah, I think Jackson's been phenomenal on defense. He's got to learn to play defense without fouling, but I'm totally fine with it. And Gary Trent has not been able to hit a shot consistently. So hopefully he does a little bit better in a bench mob sort of role and can bring some 3-point shooting off the bench, but he's going to have to find a way to make those shots. And if he can, I think you get him back in the lineup, right? But right now he's not, he's kind of Dontavian Wicks. He's got all the talent, but he's not coming through when you need him most, when he's got some of those open shots. So in the meantime, get the better defender out there and let Gary Trent Jr. come off the bench until he's ready to hit some of those threes with consistency. I don't know if that counts as chortling or where your stance on that is compared to Wes and Spoff. I don't know what the one that's in regards to, Ben. Sorry about that. A lot of Packers said they feel they're better than the Lions after the game. I don't see it this year. I'll say this. I thought there were flaws in Detroit as I went back and watched that tape. Now, maybe Zadarius Smith will fix a piece of that, but their pass rush was not impressive. I think there are ways to take advantage of that team, and I don't think they were quite as good as maybe I thought they were going to be as I went back and watched the tape. I think there's ways that you can take advantage of them. Very excited about Green Bay going into Detroit. I think they can find a way to win that game, but their injuries, the Aiden Hutchinson injury, is going to be a massive part of their season, and we'll see what injuries they have through the remainder of that team the rest of the year. But I think there's a way to beat them for sure. I don't think they're this just unstoppable juggernaut, and I think Green Bay can take them down in the second half of this year. I really do. John, does Goot need to, and thank you, Ralph, for the super chat, by the way. Appreciate that. Does Goot need to target cornerback this offseason like he did the safety position last offseason? Other priorities, edge, O-line depth, wide receiver before all the contracts are due? I still think, probably offensive line, defensive line are some of the bigger ones. Corner definitely as well. They're going to have to make a decision if they want to continue to pay Jair top money when he continues to miss games. They're going to have to see what Carrington Valentine can do the remainder of this year and how confident they are in him. They better not do an Eric Stokes, Kevin King thing where they just keep bringing him back on short-term deals because they need to go in a different direction there. And then you really don't have any depth. You have Keisean Nixon as well, who will be on the team next year. So either way, they're going to have to make some decisions at corner, and that definitely could be something that they look to attack a bit more aggressively. Pass rusher, whether it's interior or defensive tackle, again, offensive line, they're going to want to build some more depth into that. And then wide receiver, I can see them draft somebody, but I don't think that's going to be anything super aggressive there. For me, Thanksgiving doesn't have music itself, so it's okay. I'm also thankful for it. And 2 months is good. Anything more than that is excessive. Still too much, Ben. Too much. Also, I think of snow, and as a Florida kid, not having snow until I moved to the Colorado mountains a year and a half ago. I do agree on the end, though. All right, well, at least we agree on that. John, thanks for being here, bud. I think Jordan needs to tighten up his throwing motion. Yes, he is Gumby. That's amazing when he has to do the crazy things, but he needs a more consistent motion for the basic in-structure plays. Rodgers refined his motion over his career, and that's what made him great. Easier said than done, but Jordan needs to get there. I don't have an issue with his motion. I really don't. He's able to throw every single rhythm and timing throw with rhythm and timing. I don't have a concern there. His interceptions are not coming on the routine plays more often than not. The interceptions, the boneheaded mistakes are on the ad-lib plays, the ones that he's trying to extend and make something out of nothing, which you don't want to take out of him entirely, but it's just the decision-making in those situations. And if you have to have it, take your chance. If you don't, and it's a high-risk play, live to see another down. So to me, it is more a decision-making, ad-lib, extended play problem than it is anything to do with a technical standpoint. Now, from a accuracy standpoint, I think there's still things that he can do to clean up. That to me is still not an arm thing. That is a footwork thing where he needs to plant his feet, set his feet, and rip the ball in rhythm more than playing fadeaway jump shot sort of throws. So I think there's things he can do to clean up his technique from an accuracy standpoint, but that more is footwork. And from a decision-making interception standpoint, to me, that is more on the ad-lib extended plays where he just needs to make better decisions on that. Don't have a huge problem with his wind-up or throw in any real way. We have talented linebacker, but they fit together poorly on paper. The best pairing should be Base, Wilson, McDuffie. You're missing one in Bay. Oh, Wilson, McDuffie, Cooper. Sorry. Nickel, Quay, and Cooper. Dime, Quay. Maybe I'm not sure I totally agree on the pairings. I do agree that they're still trying to figure out what the best machinations of those are. I don't know if I said that right, but yeah, we're not going to go into that. Either way, they need to figure out what the right calculus of that is. And I think they haven't quite found that perfect pairing yet. I mean, part of that's to do with just Quay not playing great, Cooper still being a rookie, Wilson and McDuffie being part-time players, and Hopper being a rookie that hasn't been able to get on the field. I think next year they're going to go into it with Quay, Cooper, and Hopper. We'll see what happens with Wilson and McDuffie. We'll see if they make more additions to that room. I still think they could use a little bit more of a physical intimidator in that group, but they're going to have to figure that out a little bit more and figure out what the right grouping of it is. I do think there's good talent there, but it's unrealized potential at this point is how I would kind of put that. John, I love Quay, but I think now the best linebacker pairs don't have him on the field. I'd love to be wrong. I just don't see it. Kind of agree. Kind of more in the Wilson, although Wilson did not have a great game this past week. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't have a great feel. I think Cooper is their best, but there's limitations to him, and he continues to do some things that still make you scratch your head and just go into the wrong gap and lining up in the wrong spot. So he's got to clean up some stuff. I don't have a great feel. I don't think there's a perfect 1-2 punch at this moment, but I don't think it should just be Quay unquestionably either. I think there's an issue there. I don't think he should just automatically be the guy on every single play on defense. If you could replace any starting offensive lineman with clones of Zach Tom, how many would you replace and who? Ooh, that is a good question. That is a really good question. I guess I'm going to go with 4 Zach Toms. I'll keep Elton at left guard. But then I think I'll go with Zach Tom at center, right guard, right tackle, and left tackle. The only one I'm considering is like, is there somebody that you want a little bit more physical at that right guard spot? But I'm not choosing Sean Ryan over Zach Tom. So if I could have 2 Eltons and 3 Zach Toms, so Tom, Elton, Tom, I would do that since I have some cloning technology at my disposal. So that's what I would probably go with. But if I can only have 1 Elton, then I'll go with 4 Zach Toms. It's probably where I would go with. Why or who are some people in the Packers front office and coaching staff that are in smaller roles that deserve more spotlight to the average Packer fan? Richard, I don't have a great answer to this one. The reason being is even when you go to practices and things like that, you don't get a feel for what their impact really is. You know, we can kind of see like Rich Bisaccia's impact by the overall play on teams. We can see Jeff Hafley's impact by the overall play of the defense. Matt LaFleur, obviously. Outside of that, it's not like we have an all 22 for the front office or the coaching staff or how they're coaching the individual players. It's just hard to gauge. Even offensive coordinator, right? It's Matt's offense and he's calling the plays. How much you can really judge for Stenovich as to how good of an offensive coordinator he is. I don't know where you begin. So I don't have a great answer to that. I think we hear all the time guys like, John Dunn, the tight ends coach, and Jason Vrabel, and those guys get a lot of shout outs for some creativity and some stuff they come up with on offense. So those would maybe be a couple, but again, how they do in individual, practices with the wide receivers and tight ends and things like that, it's a lot tougher to say. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think anything would really be conjecture at this point. It's like when you say like, well, how is Ed Policy going to be, was he the right choice as the new head of the franchise, the new president and CEO? I don't know. I have no idea. I have zero clue whatsoever. I haven't had a chance to look at his TPS reports. Again, there's no all 22 for the front office. So I'm hoping it's good. I'm sure it will be good, but your guess is as good as mine. Those are just things that are a little bit more tough to evaluate overall. If the Jacobs one was a false start, it should have been a false start on Detroit center instead of the offsides on Clark or whoever it was. It was Slayton on that play. They definitely could have called the false start on the center. I'm better, actually. I just wish they were consistent with it. I don't really want that to be a false start. Watch the ball. Don't go for the claps or the quarterback doing the little, forward thing of pretending he's going to get the snap. Don't do the center doing the heads up. Let that stuff go. Watch the ball. That's what you should be reacting at. So I would rather that stuff not get called and, maybe the offense gets a little advantage there, but just be consistent with it one way or the other. But Jacobs was definitely a false start. It was absolutely a false start. I think Green Bay can play better, much better. Ben, we are in agreement there. Matt LaFleur was very direct about how unsportsmanlike penalties would be handled moving forward. Seemed out of character, but I loved it. Yeah. Now, I mean, the big thing is does he follow through with it, right? Like if Jair gets an unsportsmanlike, is he standing next to Matt LaFleur for the rest of the game for a handful of plays? How is he going to handle that? Because he put it out there. If you don't follow up on it, it's an empty threat. And then you end up with, the next time he threatens something, are you going to listen to it? Because you didn't follow through last time. So I loved it too. But if there's a personal foul or an unsportsmanlike, he's going to have to follow through with it, even if that means taking one of his best players off the field. If Xavier McKinney commits one, you taking him off the field? And if so, for how long? And if you don't, what does that mean? So I loved it too, but you're definitely going to have to follow through on it in some way. Who do you see as the best offensive and defensive position coaches? Again, we kind of just went through this, Bruce. I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did. But I would be guessing. I would honestly be guessing. Yeah. Like I said, I wish I had a better answer for you there. I also don't have as much concern with field goal kicking with McManus as I did before he got there. I agree, but he missed one last week and it's been a small sample size so far. Definitely agree overall. And kickers are going to miss from time to time. And I have a lot more confidence in McManus, but let's see what he does in the second half of the year. Any chance we see Luke Getsy maybe this year or next year back in Green Bay now that he's available again? I don't think it's impossible. If all of a sudden Tom Clements retired, I could see maybe them going to getting Getsy back as QB coach. I could see if they lost, somebody on their offensive staff to a promotion somewhere, maybe you go get Getsy and move some things around. So I don't think it's impossible, but I definitely don't think it's going to be in any major position. And hopefully Tom Clements does not retire, but that would be one where if Clements retired, I could see maybe them bringing him back as a QB coach. Bruce, I like that question. I'm definitely going Sermons on offense. Not sure about defense though. Yeah. Sermons is a great coach. Again, you have Vrabel, John Dunn. Those are names that I hear about quite a bit, but again, it's really tough to evaluate those guys. How long until Tucker Kraft gets an endorsement deal with Kraft Cheese? Why has he not had this happen already? I don't know, John. Maybe they don't have it in the budget or something, but Tucker Kraft is certainly deserving of some promotions and endorsement deals along the way here. Same old Bears, brand new Lions, I guess. Very much so. Very, very much so. It's a three-way dice roll as to whether LVN, Cox, or Mosby ends up playing better than Preston. If any of those guys does, it's a win. I just don't know that any of them are going to play worse. I don't think Preston was my third lowest graded player on the team. I don't think you're going to see a tangible difference in at least from anything that would be worse. And hopefully you get somebody that plays better. We'll see, but I don't think it's going to affect Green Bay in any significant way, at least in a negative way. Have your thoughts changed on the Nixon contract after half a season? I don't know. What were my initial thoughts, Orton? I think my initial thoughts, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, was that it was a fair deal and you kind of split it in half and you give him the deal for the kick returning, and he's also going to play a decent amount at corner. And I thought, for the most part, I don't think I totally loved the value to begin with, but I think as you sort of started to break it down a little bit more, it kind of made a bit more sense, especially as some of the top kick returners were getting like $5 million for a year. But I don't have a major issue with it. I think the big problem is that you're not getting the kick return ROI off of it, and he's in okay but not great corner. So I still think you probably could have found some better ways to utilize that money, but Green Bay likes him. I think he's better than he gets credit for from the fan base. I don't have a major issue with it one way or the other. Could have probably done without it. Don't hate that they did it, is kind of where I would put that one. I also think Love's extending will continue to get better when he's healthier. Totally agree with that. Carrot in the stick, correct. How's my Canker sore today? It's better, but it's still annoying as hell. Very, very annoying. But I don't feel like I have to swallow quite as much and clear everything. Like, it's better today, but still super freaking annoying. I'm hoping it's fully better by tomorrow. Coach Camp, are you talking about Campin, who's back? He's in a scouting role now, or are you saying that there should be a coach camp? I'm not sure, but either way, I'm not sure what you mean. With the Packers playing the Bears after the bye week, do you think Matt Eberflus is even the 5th best coach in the division? All right, I'm trying to figure out the punchline here. So, are you saying is this a Robert Saleh joke where like he's one of the top 4 coaches in the division since he's in Green Bay now? Or are you saying Eberflus gets fired and then Eberflus would give away to somebody else and then Eberflus would be the 5th best? Like, I'm not entirely sure, but he's very clearly the 4th best in the division. And I would definitely take Robert Saleh over him as well if that's where you're heading with that one. But either way, it is like the Bears are in a tough spot. They might end up nuking everything sooner rather than later. And that's because Eberflus is a heck of a defensive coordinator. Some of these guys are just offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators and not made out to be head coaches. We see that all the time. Vance Joseph, hell of a defensive coordinator, was not a good head coach. North Turner was always that way. Great offensive coordinator, terrible head coach. Wade Phillips. There's a lot of those out there. Sometimes you're just not meant to be a head coach, but you can be a hell of a coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo, great example. A lot of those out there. Who is our pad level coach? No, the linebacker. Oh, Campanelli. Gotcha. That makes more sense. I don't know who the pad level coach is. And my guess is the offensive and defensive line coaches are watching that most. But yes, Campanelli is a very good coach as well. Oh, Ben Johnson is 4 out of the. Yeah, no, Ben Johnson would definitely be that as well. Then Aaron Glenn would be another. Thou shalt not chortle. Kind of throwing Dable in there too. Yeah, I don't know. Either way, there's definitely some future head coaches in the division. That's for sure. Robert Saleh, maybe Jeff Hafley at some point, Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, and Brian Flores is probably a better coach than Eberflus as well. Like, if we actually start breaking this down as to coaches that are in the division right now that I would want as head coach of my team, I would definitely want Kevin O'Connell. I would definitely want Brian Flores. I would want Dan Campbell, Aaron Glenn, and Ben Johnson. And then I would want LaFleur. I mean, these are not in order, obviously. LaFleur, Robert Saleh, and Jeff Hafley. There are probably 8 coaches in the division that I would rather have as a head coach than Matt Eberflus. So you could actually put an argument that Matt Eberflus is actually the 9th best coach in the division. And you could... Even Bisaccia might be Bisaccia's not been good enough as a special teams coordinator, but he even had that interim stretch for the Raiders that wasn't terrible. But I'll go 8th. I think Matt Eberflus might be the 8th best head coach in the division, which is pretty freaking crazy to say, actually. I was meaning as in Dable hasn't made good head coach, but he was a decent offensive coordinator in Buffalo. Yes, gotcha. That part of it, very much so. Any thoughts on if we'll see Hopper rotate at linebacker and if we'll finally start seeing more Valentine instead of Stokes? I'm ready to rip the Band-Aid off Stokes. He has not been it whatsoever. I'm very much with you on the second part. I've been banging on that drum for a long time now. I'm hoping we see more Valentine. Don't know what's going to happen there. I don't think we're going to see Hopper. If when Quay was out, we didn't see a single snap of Hopper, I just don't see how you get there with Quay being back. So I don't think we're going to see Hopper. I think he's a special teams guy, and this is mostly a redshirt season for him. But I do think we'll hopefully see more Valentine. What does Wicks have going on? The Yip second year slump, Adam's life path. He looked good last year, but a disappointment. Just confidence right now. He's got Yips is probably where I would go there. Second year slump. I don't know, but he's just got to figure out a way to put it together. He's way too talented to have this poor of play through this point in the season. Does Goody have cap space to go spending again this offseason? He does. I think you're probably looking at maybe one sort of Josh Jacobs-esque signing, or maybe two solid signings, something like that. I think is probably what you're looking at, but he will have the ability to do a little bit in free agency. I don't think any big Zadarius Preston, Billy Turner, Adrian Amos offseason. I don't even think anything as strong as a McKinney and a Jacobs, but I think one impact player and maybe one or two lesser tier free agents is kind of what I would expect this offseason. Which is sad with Stokes, like good kid, and he looked really good in camp this year. So what happened? Ever since his rookie year, he just hasn't quite had it. And I don't think his rookie year was great, by the way. I think it's a little bit overblown. I think what he did as a rookie, being basically asked to be a number one corner for a large part of that year because of the injuries, I think he was solid. But I say this all the time. We give a ton of accident forgiveness to rookies in their first year, and then all bets are off. Like Demarius Randall, Quentin Rollins, I think for the most part, people were pretty satisfied after their rookie year. And you're like, man, they'll take a jump in year two and things will be a lot better. And then they didn't. Josh Jackson, they're like, yeah, I would have liked a little bit better, but I liked some of the stuff I saw to Josh Jackson as a rookie. And if he gets better, he's going to be really good. And then he didn't. Josh Jones at safety, same thing. Like we give a lot of leeway to rookies, and deservedly so. It's like the only thing in NFL that we still give leeway to. It's like the only thing. But if you don't get better, if you don't take that step, all of a sudden in year two, when you're making the same mistakes or worse than you did as a rookie, does not go well. Eric Stokes was brutal in year two before the injury, and basically spent a year and a half not playing at all. When he did play those couple weeks, he did not look good. Then you give him the opportunity in year four, and he still doesn't look good. At the end of the day, this is just who he is. It's just who he is. And that's why it's frustrating to me that Green Bay continues to be like, yeah, let's keep putting him out there. This is going to be the day that it's different. It's not. It's not going to be different. We know what Eric Stokes is at this point. And again, I like him. I would love nothing more than if all of a sudden he went out and balled out next week and the light bulb went off and he just went out and dominated the rest of his career. I think if we're being honest, the likelihood of that career path taking place is very, very slim at this point. So it's time to give Carrington Valentine those snaps and see if he can have the career path that the Packers were hoping that Eric Stokes would have. This team should be better in 25 and 26, right? I think so. I think that's a fair thing to assess. You never know. You never know. These things are not always linear. They don't always go the way that you would expect. The Packers after 2010, when they won the Super Bowl, were supposed to have 4, 5, 6 more years of Jordan in his prime and some really great seasons. 2011, they went almost undefeated in the regular season up until that game against the Chiefs, and they lost in the first round. They never got back to the Super Bowl. You never quite know. This might be their best chance at it. That's why you can never take these things for granted. Injury here or there, or players taking a step backwards, you just can never quite say for sure. So you know what? If they got a chance, they get to the playoffs, make the most of it, because you never know what's going to happen in the following seasons. You just never know. Stokes is not fluid enough to play corner in the NFL. He also has poor instincts. I would agree on both of those things. I think there was a lot of hype coming out of Georgia, but watching him, he has been cringe. He can't keep up with the tight end, and he's just not acceptable at the NFL level. I will say on that tight end play, that's a very good anticipation throw. Like Stokes is not far off of it. And if you don't throw that with perfect anticipation, he probably breaks it up. So that's the least of my concerns with Stokes right there is that play this past week. But I don't know. Everything else is not great. So I'm not defending him in any major way. And also I talked to somebody, I won't name names here, but that is very in tune with the NFL draft. And when the Packers took Stokes, he was just like, he knew right away. He knew this is exactly who Eric Stokes was. And this is somebody who's very well connected with some scouts, and they thought the exact same thing. He was just overdrafted. I get the height, weight, speed, the athletic profile. He just never had it at the catch point, never had the in and out of his breaks and the agility. There are just too many flaws in his game, and he's not a great run defender. It never clicked. They never quite got him to play at the level that they wanted him to, and certainly injuries have played a part as well. Oh, Mandy, I remember after we won in 2010, we thought it would be easy with an A-Rod to make it back, but it was full of heartbreaks. It really, really was. Very, very frustrating. They never got back. Ugh, brutal. But new team, new talent. Hopefully this can be the team that puts together a couple of those runs and makes it super exciting for us. But right now, just give me one. Just give me one right now. Packers have a lot of good pieces in place. What new player position do you think gets the Packers over the hump? Will we find out at the end of the season? That's a tough one to answer, Richard. I don't know. And I don't know if you mean like next year, what player or position could put them over the hump. I'll just say this again. I think they have plenty of talent on this team that they can make a run at this thing. Do I think it's super likely? No. It's probably in that 5 to 8% range that I think they have a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. But I think it's there, and crazier things have happened. I would have probably said, if you would have asked me in week 9 of this year or week 9 of 2010, which of these teams would win the Super Bowl, I would have guessed week 9 of this year, quite frankly. So you never quite know, but I do think the talent is there, and I think they can make a run at this thing, but they're going to have to play much better football than they did in the first half of the season. Quay was considered a reach at the time too, a little bit. I think he was always going to go end of first, early second. So I don't think that this was like some egregious reach. I think he probably goes in the next 5 to 7 picks if Green Bay doesn't take him. I really do believe that, but it was an aggressive pick at the time. No question about that. And it just hasn't worked out, whether it was a reach or not, whether they took him there or the beginning of the second round. You could have argued maybe Devontae should have gone first and then Watson at the end of the first and then Quay at the beginning of the second, where they traded up to get Watson. Like they could have done the exact same thing in that order. And I don't think it matters, right? You just still need those guys to play better and make a bigger impact on this season. You're answering Richard's question, Cooper. Yeah, Cooper could be that guy. He's super talented. You just got to do the simple stuff better. Just the little ins and outs of the game, lining up in the right spot, going to the right gap. If you can get the little stuff down, the playmaking is out of this world. The talent is out of this world. He can be an all-pro, but he's got to get the little things down. I know you said hold off as long as possible for snow in the Green Bay area, but do you guys have a sense yet when it'll come? I do not. I haven't looked. I don't look at the weather all that much. Most of my day, because I don't go to work, like outside of the office, is at home, outside of bringing the kids to sports. So the weather does not affect me all that much. So I don't look at it all that much, to be honest. But I don't think there's anything near in the radar. I think we're in the 50s, the high 50s right now. And I think it's supposed to be like 50s and 40s for the next couple of weeks, if I remember correctly. All right, friends. I think all the questions are exhausted here. I'm going to get out of here, get a couple things done before bringing the kiddos to sports. Appreciate all the support. I will see you tomorrow for happy hour. Remember, 3 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. Make sure to be there for that. And then next week should be more of a normal week. So yeah, should get all of our normal guests back. Carmen Vitale and I did a great episode that'll be lined up for you tomorrow. But yeah, I'll see you guys all very soon. Again, can't thank you enough. Until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.